Hey guys, real quick, before we get started on this week's project, let me share with you a couple of new stickers that I just got. One, and I know this is backwards, but TF Turning, um, it really enjoyed to watch Tim, and he does some great videos, condenses them down very short, and they're great. And go over and watch TF Turning. Give him a sub and give him a little love. He'll enjoy that. And then also a second one I got, Robert Boyce. Robert Boyce. He does some great stuff as well. It's been fun to watch Robert I've just been watching him for just a few weeks now, but it's been great to watch him, have him as one of those folks that I subscribe to. Go over and give him a little subscription. Hit that notification bell as well, and he'll love it. And tell you what, if you've got a channel, let him know, and he'll subscribe to you probably. Both of these guys do great work, and so it's a lot of fun to watch them. Let's get on with this week's project. This is Doug at Wood Spun Round, and I am so glad that you're in the shop with me again for this project. This is a piece of box elder, and you see there it measures about 8.5 by 3.5 ish in both directions. There's not a lot of color and figure as far as I can see on this blank, so that's why it was chosen for this project. We've put it on a worm screw, and here I'm just starting the process, starting on the corner like I usually do. I'm going to take off the corner which gets the bottom and the side and begins that shaping process. We're going to interrupt this process 2 or 3 times as we go along, but in the end, you'll see how it makes sense. Now, I have had this piece for a long time, and it was fairly dry when I got it, but you could see there that I was getting lots of long shavings and curls. But as I get into it, I'm seeing more and more of this red and more figure. And even there, I was starting to wonder to myself, is this really the piece that I want to do this project with? What we're after is the Moroccan blue work that Jeff Hornung does. Watched his demonstration on one of the Rockler specials just a few days ago. And this has always piqued my interest every time I've seen it, but to see Jeff do it in real time was great, and I learned a lot. And even as I did this project, I thought I understood what Jeff did, but I came to understand that there's a lot more to it than what I first thought. Again, a big pile of those long curls that were on my wrist had to be dumped off. I'm marking for a recess here. I normally use a tenon, but I'm going to use a recess on this one. So I'm just marking it with my dividers, and then I'm going to start the process of making that recess by using my small parting tool. Then I'll go back to my bowl gouge, and I'll clear out that recess with my bowl gouge. Just takes a couple of passes, 1 or 2 in and then 1 back to the outside, just to clean out the edge, and it's really done. Very simple. Can't hardly beat it. If I'm not mistaken, I do come back with my skew and clean it up. I don't think it's on the video, but I do think I cleaned up the outer edge of the recess with my skew. Here's that one pass from center to the outside, and I took my time here, just wasn't in a big hurry, did just a nice clean finishing type of cut. There was a good bit of noise. I was getting some vibration. I'm not sure if that was in the wood or if it was in my tool. I don't think it was the tool because I wasn't hanging over that far, but the wood is starting to get a good ways out, plus we were on a worm screw, so did not have the greatest of support, even though it was screwed up to the chuck pretty tightly. Recess is done. I have marked the foot about 1 1/4 inch, 3/8 out. A gap between my recess and the outside edge of the foot. And so now I'm going to just start forming the outside, including the foot and all of that. You can see the foot has already been formed there. I'm working on my outer curve. I've moved the tool rest at least once now, and you'll see that ridge, it's just behind my tool. It took me a while to work that out. Here I'm just taking those final little cleaning cuts. There's some little minor ridges and
and undulations that I want to get rid of. So this little fine shear cut will get rid of that. You see the very fine shavings coming off the tool. We've done all the turning work. Now we're sanding, but there's been a void. That void has been there, and I've done one fill on it, but here I think I was sanding at 150 and decided to stop and check that void, make sure it was still as full as I wanted it to be, and it's not, and so I'm going to do a second fill. What I'm doing here, I'm getting coffee. These are some coffee grounds, some very fine, even espresso coffee grounds. We bought these several years ago, made a couple of pots with it, and just decided we didn't like it. And so after it sat in the cabinet for about 6 months or so not being used, I told my wife I'm going to take them down to the shop and I'll use them to fill gaps. And so that's what this is. No big deal. You know, it's a name brand, a mail order brand. It's very good typically. This was just a flavored one that we didn't care for. And so I use it for this, and it works very good to fill the hole with some CA. In fact, a deep one like this, I put the CA in, put the grounds on top of that, put some more CA on top, and then some more grounds on top of that just to make sure it's full. I've completed the sanding process. I went up to 320. You really don't have to on this because the entire outside is going to be textured. I'm using the Sorby mini texturing tool here, doing some experimentation. After watching Jeff, I changed my whole idea of how to do the texturing with this particular tool. He suggests just putting the tool straight into the wood, not moving the tool at all. Before I've seen people move it side to side within a particular space, and it works well that way. This way I like the idea of this better. And then setting it off, Jeff uses a point tool. I'm using the point of my 1/2-inch skew. You could use a parting tool. You could use most anything. I'm just happen to use my 1/2-inch skew. Again, here's another. You see what I'm doing. I've got that tool, or I've got that wheel, the texturing wheel, on an angle, presenting it either straight into the wood or it may be trailing just slightly. And I'm just pressing it straight into the wood. And again, I'm going to stop the lathe because I want to see what I got. And unless I move the little flat piece on the bottom, I can go back to it, but I'm not going to have to go back. The idea is to press it in until it quits cutting. When it quits cutting, you can take it out because it's done all it's going to do. So I've worked my way from the bottom all the way up to the top, using my skew to put 1 or 2 lines after every texture. And then I started to cut this out, but no, you need to see this. I did slow the lathe has only been going about 500 RPMs, and so I've left it there. Then I grabbed some of those long curly shavings, and I'm using that. I'm not using sandpaper because I don't want to remove the detail in the texturing. I want the texture to stay there. And this is even inside my recess. Now you see toward the top of the bowl there's some light coloring. I kind of goofed up. I put sanding sealer on and then tried to use stain, and it just does not work, or not stain but dye. It just didn't work. And so I went to my paint, my spray can paint, and I'm going to spray this thing blue. Decided I was getting a little too much paint on my headstock. I've already got one piece of maple there on my bedways to protect it, but then decided I better cover up my headstock as well. That's what that piece I'm holding up is. And then I can spray the entire thing, get a good coat of blue paint on there. It doesn't have to be super thick. In fact, I'm only going to do this one coat. It just doesn't matter that much. It doesn't have to be a perfect paint job. It can be stain. It can be dye. It doesn't have to be blue. It can be any other color. It's called Moroccan blue. Jeff started with the blue color, and that's just kind of the way it works. And what I'm showing you there is the Hampshire Sheen Silver Embellishing Wax. I was going to use white, had full intentions of using white just like Jeff did, but I don't have white. I don't know why I didn't buy the white when I bought the other colors, but I bought the silver, and that's what I'm going to use. You may remember I used the silver on a Shishuggi band bowl a while back, and it came out really good. I tell you what, I like this even better. I think I still would have liked the white better than the silver, but the silver looks really good on this particular blue. I'm not sure what the official name of this blue is from the company that makes this particular paint. I call it, in my grouping, I call it my UK blue. I've used it quite a bit. I like it a lot. When it comes to college basketball, University of Kentucky is where it's at as far as I'm concerned. And I'm starting to get that way about football. If they'll ever beat Alabama, then Kentucky will be my team. So I've got it covered on there pretty well, and I'm using my paper towel still to buff this off. We're going to make a change after the outside. When I go to buff the inside, I make a change, and I'll tell you about that when we get there. Just kind of wiping off some of the excess and starting to speed the lathe up. I think you can even see that. But I'm just using that paper towel and lightly holding it to the wood. It's taking off the excess embellishing wax. That portion of the wax that was on the surface, not down in the texturing, but what's on the surface of the bowl. But it's also bringing up a shine. This is wax, and so it's going to bring up a shine. And you don't have to put anything over this. You can just let it sit, and that wax will harden up with just a little bit of time and be a nice finish on its own. I'm following Jeff's lead. I'm putting a little bit of a spray gloss on top of it. My particular gloss of choice is spray lacquer. And so after a few hours of sitting, I did spray this with some lacquer, and it did beautifully. It did not fish eye. It did not orange peel. Of course, on this textured surface, it's hard to see that, but no problems at all. It was a light coat, and I will probably go back and put some more on, build it up just a little bit more, give it a little better protection. There are some other products on the market, some good acrylic clear gloss sprays, and any of those will do a fantastic job for you, but do let that wax sit. Here's just a little bit of a close-up view. I wanted to let you see how nice and bright that shine is. And that's just the wax. There's nothing else on there at this point. So we've got it turned around. We're in the recess now. You can see the hole from the worm screw. And what I'm doing here is I'm just leveling off the top. The top never was leveled. So that's kind of what I'm doing, starting it, figuring out exactly where I want the rim to be. Before I go very far, that's what I'm going to do. There's just a little bit I wanted to take off anyway, and so that's what I'm kind of doing, is cutting this down just a little. I think in total I cut it down maybe a ½ an inch, at the most 5/8, but I think it was ½ an inch, honestly. And that's all I'm doing, just taking some small cuts, and then I'm going to start toward the center, just hogging out a little of this waste wood. I want to get this surface not exactly flat, but I want to get that crummy, cruddy wood off the very top so that I can get to working. Beginning to establish my wall thickness here. Just going down 3/4 to an inch just to establish how thick that wall is going to be. I'm also going to establish the shape of my rim. This particular one, I'm going to slope it inward just a bit. That's about as thin as I'm going to get right there. Looks like maybe I'm going to take off just a little bit more out of that thickness. But whatever this thickness is here at the rim, that's what I'm going to try to follow all the way down until I'm done at the very bottom. So So again, just hogging some wood out. I'm going to make some room so that I can come back and work that wall down just a little bit more. If I can work down anything from a half an inch to an inch, every time I'll come back to the center, get rid of my waste wood so that when I get out to the wall, I can work that wall down half an inch to an inch. And it doesn't take long, you're at the bottom. Here we are, we're at the bottom, just getting rid of the center. A lot of people will switch over to a heavier tool at this point. I stick with my 1/2 inch gouge most of the time. I do have a 5/8, 3/4. It's a 3/4 inch gouge, and it works tremendously. I really like it. I do have a 5/8, but I have a 3/4 inch as well, and it works very, very well. But it's just different. It's a different feel in my hand, and so I typically will use this 1/2 inch unless I get real bouncy. Just checking, make sure my ridges are gone. I can come back and do some fine tuning like I'm doing right here. Little shear scrape just to take out a couple of little ridges that are toward the top there. Never did have to get a scraper out on this particular bowl. Every once in a while, they'll be of a shape and of a size that the 1/2 inch bowl gouge just won't get it. That's usually when I'll pull out that 3/4 inch, and if I still can't do it with the 3/4 inch, I'll get my half round bowl scraper out, and that does a real good job of getting those little light ridges off of those walls. And as long as I have a light touch with it, I don't typically have any tear out, so I don't mind using it. Looks like we're pretty close to done. I might have to take just a little bit more, one more swipe across that bottom, but it's looking pretty good, and you can see more red in it. That red just was not present when I started this project, but as I got into it and got some of the wood removed, the red was down in the wood, but I stuck with it. I almost didn't do the inside as far as with the texturing, but the whole point of this project is to make this wood look like a Middle Eastern porcelain piece. And so went ahead with it. There is better box elder out there. I've had better. I know there's better. So I'll wait until I get a better piece to let that red flame come through. Again, sanded to 240. And here we're going to start the texturing process. Start in the center and work my way toward the top of the bowl. Started out about 1/8 of an inch off of the center of this bowl and put a texture, and then I'll come back with and do another one. I go about a 1/16 out from the first texture and do a second texture, and I'll come back with my skew and put my lines in just to give some definition, some separation between the various textures as I move along. It's kind of up to you. If you want to use one line, that's fine. If you want to use 2 lines, that's fine. If you want to alternate them, or I did them kind of random, whether I had 1 line or 2 line to separate my texture sections. I did several times turn my that texturing with the angle of the texturing wheel can be changed. There's a flat bracket on the bottom that allows you to repeat textures if you want to. Quite often what I did was I would have it at one angle, do my texture line, then I'd do the opposite angle so that I create a chevron going one way or the other. That was quite fun to do and to see those develop. Some of them came out really, really good where they were the same on both sides of the dividing line. Some of them were just a little different, and that was okay too. But that caused that wax to give a totally different look on the different sides of the dividing lines. And so it really stood out. Here again, using the blue paint. I didn't even fool with anything else, just the blue paint, and it went on really nicely. After I finished this project, I did, it reminded me, doing this one right here, it reminded me, I took one of the pieces of maple and I cut a slot, so now it will sit down over the spindle real nicely, and I don't have to hold it anymore. So that's one project that I've been wanting to do for a long time. Now I've done it. Again, we're applying the silver Hampshire Sheen embellishing wax. It doesn't have to be Hampshire Sheen. It can be any brand. I like the Hampshire Sheen embellishing wax. It's a nice soft wax, has a lot of pigment in it, and so it will coat or color this texture extremely well. If you've got an open grain wood, it will fill the pores of that open grain very, very well. I've had great success with it. Really like it. I was hoping my primary wax company, ACK'S, was going to come up with a color, but he told me the other day he ordered the stuff and it just smelled so bad he couldn't do it. And so that's a project that's on the back burner with ACK'S, but Hampshire Sheen has it. There are some other companies that have it. This is not the same as a gilding paste. Gilding paste it's a stiffer paste and should be used on the top surface. This is a wax that is intended to go down into the texture or down into the grain. And so you can really smear it on, then buff it off, and it works just tremendously. You saw the outside. You're seeing the inside begin to develop. Now, I was pretty excited. The more of this I put on, the more I liked it. Really working to get all the grooves, not only the texture grooves, but the straight grooves, the dividing grooves that I did with my skew, getting them filled with the wax so that it is even all the way around. I'm showing you a little bit more of putting the wax on the inside than I did on the outside, just because I want you to see that it is a process. It's not instantaneous. You have to work it. I'm kind of going around just double checking, triple checking, even quadruple checking, making sure I've got the wax in all the spots that it needs to be. I did find, and you may be able to see there's a couple of rough spots. A couple of my straight grooves that I did with my skew were a little rough. I should have spent just a little time with some sandpaper, probably some 240, if not 320, just smoothing it off. I didn't need to go to 100 or anything like that, but just to smooth off some of those rough spots. They did try to grab the paper towel. Now, I've gotten rid of my paper towel, and what I've got here is about a 3x3 piece of cut up t-shirt. I've got it folded 2 or 3 times. I'm holding it with my thumb basically, and then just using my fingers to add some pressure. I'm changing the direction of it right here, because I've gone at a very slow speed and made sure I had good even coverage, but now I'm starting to buff it off, and it does buff just a little better with the cloth. Also, because of the texturing, the paper towel tends to be chewed away and it gets caught in some of that texturing. I did have to pick off 4 or 5 places on the back side, and I didn't really want to do that on the inside. So here I'm using one of these pieces of cloth, and this is the only time I use cloth with my turnings. So when I'm doing the embellishing wax on texture. But you can see there, I'm not even holding it. I'm just pressure straight in is all I was using. It's gotten pretty smooth. It's pretty slick with that wax. And it's bringing up a very nice shine. I was quite impressed. This may have worked better this time than I've ever used it before. Hampshire Sheen, Martin Sabin Smith, you did good with this stuff. I really do like it. So thank you for producing it. Thank you for making it available. Thank you, Jeff Hornung, for carrying it and making sure I got some. I appreciate it. And thank you as well for the inspiration to try a Moroccan blue bowl. This came out to be a very pretty piece. I put it in text there at the beginning of the video, but don't forget, if you want ACK'S, if you want to get their abrasive paste and their wax, use Doug15 at checkout to get a 15% discount. There you can see the stills. Came out just beautiful. I do thank you for watching. Please make sure you're subscribed. Hit the like button if you would, and share it as well. That's the way we can get to the levels, the next levels. We do have a giveaway coming at 750, and so we need to hit that real soon. I thank you for joining me. This is Doug at Wood Spun Round. Until we meet again, spin 'em round.